Welcome to Let's Get Writing. I'm Kathryn Taylor. This is a show where we tell you the stories behind the stories. And my guest today spent 23 years watching the coast of Newfoundland as a lighthouse keeper. And he wrote a book all about those adventures called Adventures of a Lighthouse Keeper. And BarryPorter, welcome to Let's Get Writing.
Glad to be here.
I tell you, I have to say, when I got your book and I thought, no, I'm not that interested in lighthouses. I wonder what this is going to be like. And I started reading, and it's a phenomenal read. You bring to life the adventures of a lighthouse keeper.
It came out pretty good. It flowed out of me once I started writing the adventures.
Well, how did it all start?
I guess I've had it kicking around in my head for 10 or 12 years to write a book. There's books about truck drivers, fishing captains, soldiers, politicians. No lightkeeper have ever written their story or told the local inside story. So there's picture books, but no real lightkeeper have told it. So during COVID, everything shut down. I started posting a few pictures on Facebook and getting really interesting comments, and people were really impressed with the story behind the pictures. So I just got out my pictures. I kept a diary for 35, 40 years. I started going back through my notes, and I started writing the book. And like I said, once I started, it just poured out of me.
You know, Barry, when I saw that you had kept diaries, that must have been a tremendous help to you in remembering, because the detail in your book, even the names of people and the incidents, they're very, it's very colorful. It's just... Yeah,
well, I haven't recorded. I could go back and look up a certain day there was a particular bad storm or submarine incident on the ocean, right? So it adds to my story, I think, be able to pinpoint the exact time and place it happened, right?
So a memoir, when you were beginning to write that's putting a lot of yourself out there, and you have to think of a lot of things when you're writing a memoir. How do I include them? How are they going to feel about it? What were some of the biggest challenges you faced when you were starting to put it out there?
I didn't really face any challenges. I just, like I said, it just came out of me, and I bounced things off my wife Alice, get her feedback, but it went pretty easy.
Oh, good. Well, to read, it's a beautiful read, and I think what you bring is the color and the adventure of that type of role. You weren't all that old when you started.
I was 28, which was a rookie. Just about everybody I worked with were, 20, 30 years older than I was. So Lightkeepers is a unique career, so not much young blood. I was the young blood at the time when I got in the system. And but I enjoyed it.
You had a few challenges because you were the new kid on the block, and this is Newfoundland. They're the older, more settled men have their way of doing things, and then you showed up. So
yes.
Any particular memories?
Well, everybody are set in their old ways, and some keepers like to have fish on Friday and certain meals on certain days. And, for the most part, I went along with it, but I throw in my little spin on it sometimes. And, I'm the first guy to ever put a Christmas tree up on Bacalhao Island. That was taboo, but I went there in '88, and I was working with a part-time keeper, and, I enjoyed Christmas. So, a couple of days before Christmas, I went back in a little valley there and cut myself a little Charlie Brown tree and had Christmas.
If I recall, I think that Christmas tree at one point though went over the cliff.
It did. The whole guy didn't really appreciate it. I was a senior; he was only a part-time guy, so I technically was the boss. So I made the call and put up the tree, and he grumbled about it. And he used to be on the CB radio at nighttime. That was our communication with the real world. And I heard him talking to his buddies. There's a tree in the living room, and anyhow, after a few days, Christmas was over, so I took the darn tree, walked out into Gulch right under our helicopter pad, and chucked it out over into Gulch here, right? Decorations and all. But anyhow.
But that's one of the kind of the lighter stories in there, but there are so many stories in there that are not quite as, light as that one. For example, when you first went there, the isolation and adjusting to that way of life, that must have been quite a challenge for you.
Yeah, it's a lonely old life, right? You got to be cut out for it. Not everybody could do it. Lots of guys went out for one shift and never ever came back. Long Point wasn't so bad. I was on Long Point. That was a land station. I could drive there. But when I went to Bacalhao in '88, that was a more remote, more isolated, and more challenging, right? You had long days, long nights, bad weather, and no visitors. So you had to keep yourself positive and occupied.
And you seemed to do that well. You did things like cross-country skiing. You had a dog with you at one point. I don't know if she was out there.
She spent a little bit on
Gypsy
was on Bacalhao a little bit, but
we're talking about this. Let's have a look at some of the photographs. I think Surgeon's Cove, which is on Exploits Island.
correct.
Been there quite a few times myself,
Beautiful place.
fishing off of there, and so I could really get into what you were talking about. But let's bring up a few photographs from your time there. And you can share. Okay, this is what you call almost like the toilet bowl.
That's the flush box.
The flush box, that's it.
That
okay.
particular picture was taken December the 21st. We were doing a shift change. That's the most dangerous changeover we ever done. There was a storm brewing. We couldn't get a helicopter out of St. John's. So the Lightkeepers coming out wanted to get out because we'd worked the previous Christmas. You work every second year, every second Christmas. So that changeover there, it took us almost an hour to get 2 men off that boat with their supplies, and me and my co-worker, Hart Spudgel, back aboard that boat. And we broke every safety law in the book there. But if we didn't do it, we would have been beyond schedule even more. So
I think that fascinated me. Look at the cliffs. I mean, anyone who's been out there in a boat, and I have been, and you look at those cliffs, you can't even see where you came out, and it's incredible.
Yeah, there's no wharf, there's no cove, there's no shelter to jump to, right?
It was dangerous.
It's very dangerous, and icy rocks. You just jump on the rocks like Spider-Man.
Hard to believe. These days, that would never fly.
No.
But eventually, and this is again, is that a shot of the lighthouse
That's
up there?
Surgeon's Cove with the iceberg just off the side of it there.
Very striking scenery.
Beautiful light station.
Okay, things improved
Things
after a
improved.
while, didn't they?
Yes, the helicopter was a blessing when that would show up for changeover. Right there, the helicopter's bringing in a brand new Lester diesel generator. So they drop it. I had to go snap on the rope there, right? So that's improved with the helicopter for sure.
And again, though, the helicopters were not a guarantee because depending weather, fog, wind, rain, all those things that you're wide open to, sometimes they couldn't fly.
Oh, days and days you couldn't.
Yeah, and in some of these stories in here, you talk about one boat that you went out in that had a questionable motor. Just
Yeah, we got lost in the snowstorm once coming off Bacalhao.
Yeah.
Just zero visibility again. Chopper wasn't available, so they brought on the harder boat, and we had troubles navigating through the snow. So it was some dicey shift changes.
Yeah, when I was reading about that, and as you were going in, how cold and miserable it must have been, and yet you lost your orientation.
Yeah.
You were, and I think you spotted some kind of a landmark or sign.
Yeah, we steamed in 50, 100 feet visibility, and like I was the rookie, so I just left it up to the senior keepers, and but they had no compass, so they miscalculated, and we went off course, and finally we found a familiar piece of land that they recognized, and we were several miles off course, and getting late in the afternoon, storm brewing, and it turned out good, but it was adventurous.
But one of the reasons you were there would be to help ships and help people. And what kind of connections did you make over the years with those people?
Well, a lot of ships just went by, or boats, no contact, right? But there was a secure feeling. They knew there was a lightkeeper on watch. So But we had radio contact with all the local boats and all the Coast Guard ships passing by. You know, like we had daily radio communications. So there was a connection there, whether we talked to them or just give them a wave when you're steaming by. You know, we go, you know, put our head out the window and give them a wave. Just security. You know, they knew somebody was keeping an eye on them.
Which something when it came up, and I just want to touch upon it now, automation. That was beginning to creep in towards the end of your career. Those would be the kind of things that would be lost with
Oh, definitely,
automation.
yeah. And automation, I say it was dangled over my head my entire career. In 1983, when I went to Surgeon's Cove Head for my very first shift, Kelvin Moores was the keeper I worked with. And he told me, like, my second day of work, he said, "Barry's no future in this." And I stayed at it till 2006. But every few years, automation would rear its ugly face, and you know, the powers to be in Ottawa would automate a couple lighthouses here, a couple here and there, right over the years. In 1983, there was 56 man lighthouses, and when I left in 2006, we were down to 23.
Mm-hmm. And they still exist, most of those now.
Those are still, yeah, they're protected right now. There's no talks of automation lately, but it's politics, so it can, you know, anything can change.
Of course. Now, over the years, you occasionally had your dog Gypsy with you. I think we have some shots from, is it Long Point?
Long Point 20.
Yeah, let's have a look at those. And I think Gypsy shows up here. She was a very special person in your life. There she is.
There's Gypsy, yes.
Yeah, a beagle. And so she got to be with you on some of your
She
adventures.
was with me when I went to Twillingate in '84. She was with me 24/7, right? So she's a special dog, yep. My last year there, she had an accident and became paralyzed, and I had to do physiotherapy on her for 10 months. A trip to Guelph, Ontario for a surgery on her back. And, you know, it's a long story. It's in my book, but, you know, she lived another happy 7 years after
It was a beautiful story. Yeah.
my physio on her.
Okay, and what else? Here we go. Oh, there you are.
Yeah, there I am, down in Twillingate, good old Long Point Twillingate with my book.
Yeah, and that lighthouse in the background is absolutely beautiful. I think many people have visited there.
Yes.
And there we go. Those cliffs and the icebergs, the things you saw a lot of wildlife, no doubt?
A lot of wildlife, you know, humpback whales, snowy owls, eagles, every bird, Arctic fox on Bacalhao. There's Long Point again.
And you had no fear of heights because you were also responsible for painting these structures.
No, yeah, I had no fear of heights.
So what was it? Actually, there was a picture. I actually took this one.
Yeah.
It's not in the
Beautiful.
book, but it was one evening at Long Point, just as the sun was setting.
You get great
And
sunsets
I wanted
there.
to show it to you.
Nice.
But you used to have to go up onto the structures. That was a big part of what you had to do, was
Yeah.
maintain them.
Bacalhao, I tell stories in my book about painting that. The tower would be painted every 2 years. And you get up on a little skinny ladder and hope for the best, right? But, you know, again, this day and age, safety, you wouldn't be allowed to do it, right?
No.
But there, myself and my co-worker, we would chip all the rust off it, prime the tower, and then apply red and white, and hope that it's not blowing, right? But a lot of work.
And so this is in the Bacalhao Island, this one here?
Yes.
Which was one of your more challenging posts, wasn't it? It was a little more
Yes,
isolated
like I said, that was
for
more
you.
isolated, more remote, and no visitors, right? Very few. We, you know, the 4 years I was there, we probably had a dozen people drop in, say hello, right? So.
Very stark. And I remember when you said that you had a list of your visitors when you were there, and then when you were back at Surgeon's Cove, people would come out on snowmobile, which blows my mind. It does. I have to say, just even to read it makes me feel
They
uncomfortable.
travel 20 miles over the bay ice to visit exploits, and then you make a side trip out to the lighthouse and have a little tour of the lighthouse or a cup of tea. And yeah, big difference. The exploits had a lot of visitors, especially in the summertime because of the traffic.
Well, the
right?
traffic, everyone's going.
boaters.
Yes, and it's even increased probably since you were there.
It's busy. Yes.
There's quite a few homes there. But when I think of people taking a snowmobile, and they wouldn't be even like the ones we drive today that are super powerful, going across the ice.
Yeah, they had a couple, there was a few close calls, and they touched base with us usually before they came out, because we'd inform them if there was a icebreaker in the bay or whatnot, right? So you had to be careful, or if the sea conditions, if there was a big sea outside, sometimes that would break up the ice, and there was a couple close calls with those guys, but.
Yeah, surprisingly, very few lives lost with these things.
I don't know for any.
We're a hardy lot here in Newfoundland and Labrador is all I can say. And then I'm thinking, you also mentioned a few times, you mentioned the fox and one you befriended that you fed, in rather a unique situation. But how about these old lighthouses on dark, stormy nights? Any ghosts around?
They would be creepy, and there'd be whistling, and there'd be, a door could blow open or something. But I got spooked on Long Point, and I got spooked on Surgeon's Cove Head. Right, there's two stories there. But when the story on Long Point is, was my imagination. But it was 12 o'clock in the night. I was doing a night shift. We had 80, 90 mile-an-hour winds for days and days with fog and rain. And I went on shift. I was doing a night shift. I went on shift 12 o'clock. I went up to the top of the light tower just to check, make sure the light was working, even though it wasn't really visible in the fog. And I walked down the tunnel then and checked the foghorn. And when I went into the foghorn building that turned the lights on, there was no lights gave out. The switch broke. And I walked over. All I could get was a flash of a light through the window every now and then. And I walked over to the compressor, and I could hear this strange noise that I've never heard before. And I don't know if it was the environment or with the blackness, but I listened, and then it translated to me, let me out, like creepy sound, and I just bolted out of the building back to my office in the dwelling, and rethought everything. I said, man, if I'm, that was my first fall, my first storm at Long Point. I said, if I'm going to make a career, I got to face the demons and see what's down there, right? So I went back down with a flashlight, I took a hammer and my trusty beagle, Gypsy, and went into the foghorn again, a building, and it was total blackness. And I went over with my flashlight a little braver, and it would only happen every couple of minutes. And finally, after much time, what I discovered was, because of the high winds outside, the compressors were pumped up to the max to blow, and it was just a vibration in the belt, and it would shoot. The compressor had a pipe for a vent on it, and it used this little creaking noise used to go down through the basement and make this weird noise, and so I discovered what it was. Right, it wasn't a ghost, so I felt good. But Surgeon's Cove Head, there's a ghost on Surgeon's Cove Head, right?
Oh well.
See me. Is there.
Yeah.
Yes, I met, or she played with my mind, and out there, my very first shift when I transferred back there in 1992, my very first shift, you go on shift 2 o'clock in the morning. So my co-worker, I just landed there, unpacked, settled in, picked out my bedroom, and my co-worker, he clued up 10 o'clock shift, so I was going on 2 a.m. So I just lay down on the Chesterfield 11 o'clock, 11:30, just for a cat nap before my shift. I set an alarm clock, which I didn't need to, because my internal clock, I'd had a few years at it. I wouldn't go to sleep in, but the story goes, I laid down, and when it came time to wake up, I was like in a trance. I was on the Chesterfield, and I was half awake, half asleep. I couldn't. It took me a while to get my senses and jump off the Chesterfield. And when I got up, I looked at my clock, the alarm clock. It had stopped at 2 o'clock. And I checked my wristwatch, and it was 3 o'clock. So I overslept a full hour, which I've never done in my entire career. And I was just flabbergasted that happened. So that was fine. I gets up, and on Surgeon's Cove Head, you slide up the window and look out your beautiful view, and you got the ocean in front of you. So I just slid up the window, it was in the winter, and looked in the bay, in the south, and beautiful starlight night, and just looking around, and beautiful night. And as I panned across the horizon, just checking for shipping or whatever, I looked to the north, and the main light had gone out. It was black, and I was shocked. I couldn't believe the main light was, that's the main thing, maintain the light and your horn on the lighthouse. So I had to put on my boots and jacket, run out, climb up the tower. The light tower has two main lights in it, two main bulbs. They're spring loaded. If one fails, if one burns out, the second one's supposed to spring in and come on. And if that fails, there's a automatic light sensor that would power another backup light. None of those systems worked, so I had to remove the bulb, put in a new one, go down, flick some switches, and get the light back on. So that was good, but this happened in my very first shift. And anyhow, the next day, my coworker got up. He went for a hiking across the island, and when he came back, I had to confess because I felt embarrassed, and so I just told him what happened, and he just chuckled. Oh, that was Simi, and so I learned after that the ghost is called Simi. It's a lady that died on the lighthouse back in the early '60s, and she was laid out in my bedroom, which I didn't know, but she's a friendly ghost, so there's more in the book. You have to get the details out of the book.
Yeah, I like listening to you tell these stories, and it's truly adventures of a lightkeeper, absolutely. How about the adventures? I know you took many adventures on your time off. You went traveling quite a bit on your motorcycle. Did that help balance your life a little?
Yeah, I guess, we done a few trips on motorcycle. We left, Bacalhao and drove to right downtown Manhattan, New York City one summer. A couple years before that, we done a major trip. We drove to Porterville, California. We were gone 8 weeks, and we know like 23,000 kilometers we drove, but it was good just to leave the isolation of remoteness of the lighthouse and then just expand and go across the country. It was
quite a balance, quite a balance. And then, so then you would be back to work at the lighthouse and continuing on. So as I say, I love hearing you tell the stories. I could listen to these all night, but I think we want to encourage people to read the book, which Flanker Press brought to us. How was that experience for you in getting a deal for your book?
It went pretty good. I started writing the book, like I said, during COVID, and I was 3/4 through it, I guess, and we went to St. John's, and I always, familiar with Flanker, a good local publisher, so I went just out of the blue. I went to their office, met Jerry Cranford, and I just sat down on his desk. Like, I didn't Google how to pitch. Yeah. I have no idea how to pitch a book, but I just sat down in front of him and just spilled out for 15 minutes my dealings with the book, and I had pictures to back it up. And by the time the conversation was over, he said, "We're interested," but no guarantee. He said, "You finish it, send it in," and later, December of 2021, I sent it in, and a month later, they contacted me and said they love it and they want to publish it. And
wow, we have a few pictures, I think, of some of your book signings here that we're going to share. We hope. Oh, there we go, at the Rooms.
At the Rooms, yeah. I had a gig at the Rooms, done a book presentation there. I do readings and a slideshow and question and answers. So that was a really great privilege to be doing a presentation at the Rooms.
And look, this is down south. And you had quite an audience of people. I think.
No, that's the Rooms.
That's at the Rooms.
That's the Rooms. That's the theater at the Rooms.
Okay, yeah. And so that's a big part of taking a book and promoting it and going out. So I imagine you've met. I think. Well, I would say there are so many people who are fascinated by lighthouses, just the beauty, the starkness, and the possibility of what they represent.
Yeah, there's a lot of people that just love, lighthouses in general, and collectors. People collect lighthouse salt and pepper shakers and or books and all that. But I've got really good response from about my book, and a lot of people really enjoyed it. Right.
And the one thing that before we wrap up, I've got to ask you about BarryPorter from Porterville. And you went to Porterville in California on your motorcycle. Tell me all about Porterville.
Porterville's a whole farming town. You know, most people think of Newfoundland as fishing, right? But Porterville we got good topsoil. So Porterville was, back in the day, was known for its great vegetables. And my dad was a farmer all his life. He farmed till he was 89. And like, it's just a small community of farmers. There's only, you know, it's very few, there's only small time farming going on there now. But back in the day, Porterville fed or sent vegetables to Fogo, Change Islands, and Twillingate, that area, right? Like, because we had good growing conditions. So everybody worked off the land, and we were all cousins or uncles to each other, right? It was,
except for you. You went into lighthouse keeping.
I broke the tradition,
You
yes.
broke the tradition. Well, I do hope people take an opportunity to learn more about this, because it's an important book to the history of Newfoundland as well. You've captured it. There's a very romantic chapter in there. I don't want to say any more about your proposal to your wife, Alice. So there's so many delights inside the book, and you just never know what you're going to find.
There's a bit of everything. It's entertaining, and there's a bit of history. It's threw it all in there.
It's all in there. And Barry, where can people get the book?
You can pick up the book at Flanker Press, and it's still available at Chapters, Coles, Amazon, and Irving Big Stops have it across the island, or from me personally.
And how do people reach out to you, Barry?
You can contact me at BarryPorter Author at Facebook.
At Facebook, and I've been on there. It's a great Facebook page, and so many wonderful things can be promoted through that avenue.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for coming in. I really appreciate it. And folks, thank you so much for joining me on Let's Get Writing. We do try to show you what happens behind the scene with books, and I hope you enjoyed my guest today, BarryPorter, The Adventures of a Lightkeeper. Thank you for joining me.